actually have been, and may now be, lurking within the Earth's atmosphere strange aerial objects. Some of these enigmatic entities possess a geometric form, their essence shimmering as brilliant light sources, while others defy any satisfactory description as mere natural phenomena. These manifestations can only be perceived as artificial devices, crafted and operated by a high intelligence beyond our comprehension, and no known power plant on this earth could possibly account for their extraordinary performance. As twilight descends, conditions are shifting and improving, heightening the tension in the air. If, during the next half hour, we receive any reports on these mysterious blicks, we're heading straight for them, the lead investigator announced, determination resonating in his voice. Man possesses the remarkable flexibility, the audacity to traverse not only this planet, but also to venture forth to some other celestial body, the moon, Mars, or any number of unknown realms. An expanse of space awaits us, teeming with mysteries yet to be uncovered, and there's a wealth of knowledge to gain once we dare to seek it. Tonight, we have departed the political arena, venturing into the realm where men's minds and imagination transcend established facts and provable theories. We're about to delve into that unfathomable abyss of outer space. The countdown echoed ominously. 10, 9, 5, 4, 5. Green men, or what a voice interjected, slicing through the anticipation. No, not little green men or women. I have seen your face, and trust me, I don't need any persuasion. His eyes darkened with a haunting memory. I've seen beyond mere speculation down there. You have dead aliens, you're shocked. Errand you. I was too. I once adhered to the Air Force's explanation, even though deep down, I knew it was a facade, a lie constructed to veil the truth. So, I stand firm in my insistence. Yes, I saw it. Yes, I held it. I am utterly convinced that crucial information is being withheld from the public concerning the infamous Roswell event. Someday, they must release the truth, tell us what actually happened, I implored, the urgency in my voice rising. Join us as we recount the eyewitness accounts and the alleged cover-up attempts by the United States military, as we strive to untangle the mystery behind what truly fell from the skies on that fateful evening. We begin our journey in the desolate expanse of the Roswell Desert, a haunting backdrop for the events to unfold. Descriptions of UFOs have remained strikingly consistent throughout the ages, characterized as brilliant lights in formation, darting at impossible speeds, saucer-shaped objects hurtling through the firmament before vanishing into the void. Look at this, I exclaimed, as images flashed before us, descriptions echoing those synonymous with our elusive visitors from beyond the stars. It's all too easy to dismiss modern-day sightings as mere weather balloons or top-secret military technology. Yet, photographs of unidentified flying objects date back long before the Wright brothers dared to take flight, or Da Vinci wielded his pen to sketch celestial machines. The threads of a grand narrative weave through time, beckoning to be unraveled. The Tully Papyrus hieroglyphs, unearthed from an ancient Egyptian scroll dating back to the reign of Thutmose III over 30 years ago, vividly depict the sighting of fiery disks multiplying and ascending in the sky. Given that the Egyptians were astute, astronomical geniuses, it's nearly inconceivable that they misinterpreted this as a mere astral phenomenon, speculation that will persist until the original papyrus is discovered. One truth remains unwavering. This is not the only ancient artifact chronicling encounters with unidentified flying objects. Fast forward 750 years to the heart of the Roman civilization in 218 BC. A celebrated historian and academic, Titus Livius Patavinus, recorded his inexplicable observation of gleaming phantom ships shimmering in the celestial expanse. In recent history, however, the most pivotal and well-known UFO sighting transpired in the shadowy deserts of Roswell, New Mexico, a notorious hotbed of extraterrestrial activity, where the threads of the unknown converge with reality. In July 1947, the small, tranquil town of Roswell, New Mexico, is suddenly thrust into the crucible of controversy. An unidentified flying object careens through the atmosphere, crashing violently into the unsuspecting ranch of a local farmer. forever altering the landscape of this sleepy enclave. Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces announced that a flying disc has been recovered and is now firmly held in the hands of the military. Shockwaves ripple through the community as Army officers assert that the missile, discovered sometime last week, has been meticulously inspected in Roswell before being dispatched to Wright Field, Ohio, for further examination. An undercurrent of intrigue and anxiety grips the town as the veil begins to lift on a reality they could scarcely fathom. Thus begins the enigma of Roswell, a conspiracy steeped in mystery and intrigue. On a tempestuous evening, rancher Mac Brazel and his young son make their way home on horseback after tending to their flock. As they draw nearer to their ranch, they stumble upon a shocking sight: unexplainable debris scattered across the ground, remnants that would ignite investigations across the globe. Few dispute that something monumental crashed that fateful night, yet the details remain shrouded in a fog of uncertainty. In comparison, all the advancements in methodology, equipment, and destructive power we had been studying paled before the revolutionary impact of the atom bomb. The world was on the brink of a new understanding, but what lay beneath that debris would challenge everything we thought we knew of Roswell Army Airfield, a location enshrouded in mystery and whispered. Served as the home of the elite 509th Bomb Wing during World War II, a hallowed airstrip from which the little boy atomic bomb was launched, forever obliterating Hiroshima. It seems almost poetic that such a site would subsequently bear witness to an impact of its own. There are compelling claims suggesting that Roswell was a critical point for an alien spacecraft to be in action on this planet, particularly because it housed the 509th Bomb Wing, the sole squadron ever trained to unleash nuclear devastation upon the Earth. The alignment of these events feels more than mere coincidence. It teeters on the edge of fate, linking humanity's most destructive capabilities with the allure of the unknown. Though I remain a bit skeptical, I believe there are compelling reasons for why this particular crash occurred in Roswell. In the expansive New Mexico landscape, vast stretches of empty desert provide an ideal backdrop for concealing anything one wishes to keep out of public view. It offers a sanctuary from prying eyes and curious minds. The public relations officer for the 509th Bomb Group was charged with the delicate task of unveiling their newly acquired information to the local news corporations, confirming that they had indeed uncovered the remains of a crashed flying saucer. I was summoned to headquarters, where I was imbued with the weight of this revelation. We were in possession of flying discs to be hand-delivered to the 4 news outlets in town, 2 radio stations and 2 newspapers. The atmosphere crackled with anticipation as news outlets quickly sprang into action, disseminating the story that would ripple through the nation. Front-page headline blazed across the Roswell Daily Record: RAF captures flying saucer on ranch in Roswell region. As we pore over this seismic press release, we must consider the timing. Just weeks before the Roswell incident, in late June 1947, a monumental story had emerged when a man named Kenneth Arnold reported sighting what were labeled as flying saucers. This marked the inception of the flying saucer narrative, although the term itself was not birthed by Arnold. Rather, it was a journalist who coined the phrase. Arnold described objects moving with the grace of saucers skipping across the surface of water, igniting a wildfire of public fascination that would pave the way for what was to come. Given the context, it's reasonable to speculate the Army Air Force likely believed they were crafting a story that would dazzle and distract the public for just long enough. Walter Holt, the man behind the initial press release, may have thought he was unveiling an event of monumental significance, when in truth, it would all be swept aside with a half-hearted apology. We made a mistake. It was merely a weather balloon. Not even 4 hours had elapsed when the reports were hastily redacted. General Roger Ramey took the reins, releasing a newly altered account of the events. His proclamation was far from earth-shattering. He implied it was simply the wreckage of an experimental Army weather balloon, but was this genuinely the truth, or merely a cover-up designed to placate the growing intrigue? I believe that at the core of this scandal, the flying saucer press release, in essence, the press release issued by Walter Holt, which boldly proclaimed the capture of a flying saucer, may have been a grave misstep in the chaotic aftermath of the incident. It seems they realized they were in possession of some advanced technology of their own, and became desperate to conceal the fact that experimental activities were being conducted locally. In their haste to generate excitement, they completely overinflated the press release, forcing them to retract it with alarming speed. Yet, that's the only significant blunder I believe they made. The public swiftly accepted the narrative of a weather balloon. The manner in which it was managed elegantly hinted at, yes, we have a flying saucer, only to have a more seasoned general swoop in to clarify, no, it was merely a new type of weather balloon. Project Mogul lasted for 2 years. From 1947 to 1949 marked the end of Project Mogul, which aimed to deploy enormous arrays of balloons, akin to weather balloons, to elevate listening devices into the upper reaches of the atmosphere. The objective was clear: to capture the faint sounds of Russian atomic tests, effectively turning these balloons into tools of espionage against the Soviets. The project was ultimately abandoned for 2 primary reasons. First, it proved limited in its effectiveness, and second, the Americans discovered more advanced methods of surveillance that rendered the balloons unnecessary. I stand firmly in the camp that believes the Roswell crash can indeed be explained by a weather balloon, and my conviction rests on 2 compelling pillars. First, there exists a consistent narrative that has been thoroughly investigated and reinvestigated multiple times, yielding persuasive evidence that supports this explanation. Second, the competing theories, those surrounding the recovery of alien craft and extraterrestrial bodies, exhibit contradictions and numerous significant flaws in the evidence they present. Undermining their credibility, yet, the residents of Roswell were resolute. They clung to the belief that something extraordinary had occurred, something beyond earthly explanation. The Roswell Army Airfield was indeed embroiled in the mystery, and when an officer arrived, it was his responsibility to examine what was believed to be a crashed aircraft in the very heart of Roswell. His excitement was palpable as he burst into our home, waking both my mother and me, eager for us to witness what he had brought in from the field. He described it as a flying saucer. The material I laid eyes on bore an unsettling resemblance to something that could have been ejected from the craft itself, as if an in-flight explosion had shattered its integrity, scattering debris haphazardly. Whispers circulated about salvaged items, claims suggesting that, in fact, we had recovered something significant, speculation that we might have stumbled upon captured alien hardware. The air was thick with intrigue and uncertainty, leaving a lingering question: what had truly occurred that night? The controversy surrounding the retrieved Project Mogul balloon does not entertain the notion of salvage. They simply collected what was deemed refuse and disposed of it, fearing the embarrassment that would ensue from exposing their clandestine experiments. Yet, there are those who assert that what was salvaged, mysterious technology of alien origin, has inspired a remarkable array of inventions, from laser beams to Velcro. Eyewitness accounts from Roswell painted a chilling picture of bodies recovered from the wreckage. He came in practically bursting with excitement, claiming that what he had witnessed was unlike anything from this world. 2 lifeless bodies lying on the ground beside the craft, along with one small figure he referred to as a little person. To our disbelief, he asserted that one was still alive, a notion that electrified the room and filled it with tension. The young being he described appeared profoundly sad, its eyes mirroring a sorrow too great for us to comprehend. In that moment, I had never seen him so animated, caught up in the most fantastical revelation. There was no cause for alarm, he reassured us, but deep down, I felt a pang of sympathy for whoever that entity might have been. It belonged to a family far away, and now would never return home. What fate awaited them was an unanswerable question that hung heavy in the air, shrouded in uncertainty and loss. Are there extraterrestrial bodies lying in a secret military vault somewhere? I hold a sincere belief that we indeed experienced the crash of something not of this earth, for the materials retrieved from that ranch remain unmatched by anything we possess today. Our planetary visitors are not merely products of imagination, they are real, lurking just beyond the veil of our understanding. The Army only intensified the speculation surrounding alien contact with their shroud of secrecy and the manipulation of their account of the evento. Numerous cases exist where the military has exploited UFO narratives to obscure their own clandestine activities, and such instances are likely better documented than those where they attempted to suppress a genuine UFO encounter. The layers of deception only deepen, leaving us to question just how much has truly been concealed. For instance, in 1976, radar in California detected a UFO that vanished in a mere sweep of the instruments. The subsequent declassification of documents later revealed that this sighting was linked to a test of the stealth bomber, an early iteration, to be precise. Clearly, if an object could elude radar and prompt a UFO report, it was performing its role flawlessly, wasn't it? One of the most documented cases dates back to 1956, when American servicemen were informed that they were guarding the wings and engine of a flying saucer, crated up and shipped all the way from Budapest to Fort Knox in Texas. This narrative epitomizes the crash retrieval stories. You acquire it, secure it, and then stash it away in a safe location. Yet, Fort Knox, a famed treasury of gold, doesn't seem like the most logical place to harbor a UFO. The contradiction lingers, inviting deeper investigation into what truly lies beneath the surface of such claims yet again. Documents declassified in the wake of Glasnost unveiled a startling truth. What the servicemen were actually guarding, despite being instructed that it was the wings and engine of a flying saucer, was in fact the Hungarian crown jewels. The Hungarians, fully aware of the impending Russian advance, sought to protect their national treasures from being seized and taken to Moscow. This scenario exemplifies numerous cases where we find documented accounts revealing how effectively a UFO cover story could divert public attention. Were the authorities truly anxious about national security and the potential fallout if they were to disclose that we had indeed been visited by extraterrestrial beings? Such questions linger, shrouded in a veil of secrecy, igniting curiosity and suspicion about the truths hidden behind closed doors. They're swinging from that mirror, and in an instant, it leaps right at the advancing men, striking them head-on. Lord, they're engulfed in flames. The fire spreads mercilessly, consuming the entire field and leaping toward the nearby woods. In the shadow of such chaos, the nation had previously descended into a state of mass hysteria over alien visitations. 9 years before the events in Roswell, on October 30th, 1938, a radio broadcast directed by Orson Welles ignited a frenzy across the United States. His adaptation of H.G. Wells' drama, Yati War of the Worlds, reverberated through airways, reporting catastrophic explosions on Mars and peculiar objects plummeting from the skies, culminating in a chilling portrayal of a destructive alien invasion heading our way. The panic that ensued was palpable, fueled by fear and uncertainty about what lay beyond the stars. About 20 yards to my right, ladies and gentlemen, we regret to inform you that due to circumstances beyond our control, we are unable to continue the broadcast. Unbeknownst to many listeners, who did not grasp that the broadcast was a dramatization, some were so distressed by the unfolding narrative that they took their own lives. Consequently, the UR of the World's SCE incident is often dismissed in the realm of ufology, overshadowed by the general consensus that it was merely a radio drama. Keeping it simple, on October 30th, 1938, Orson Welles, High Theater of the Air in the Air to broadcast a radio drama that intricately wove a mockumentary-style reality. They crafted a live news report detailing the landing of aliens in Grover's Mill, New Jersey. The aftermath revealed that a small number of listeners succumbed to panic, alarming the United States enough to prompt the first serious media research into the phenomenon. A peer-reviewed university paper emerged, shedding light on its findings. It turned out that the panic was almost accidental. One significant factor was the way the drama had been introduced. Many who tuned in missed the opening disclaimer, flitting between radio stations. Competition was minimal, resulting in an audience larger than anticipated. Those few who panicked often heard just the first few moments of the broadcast, but not the introduction that clarified it as fictional, leaving them vulnerable to the alarming realism presented. Another significant reason behind the panic was the presence of individuals with fervently strong religious beliefs, some of whom genuinely believed they were witnessing the end of the world. Moreover, many listeners amplified the turmoil for amusement, relishing the drama unfolding around them. The BBC later produced a documentary on the incident, featuring a man who, even 40 years later, could barely contain his laughter as he recounted the event. He vividly remembered how he and his siblings watched their father succumb to panic, all while they knew full well it was just a dramatization, and they let him spiral, finding humor in the chaos. Thus, many of those who panicked were doing so unnecessarily and were quickly corrected within minutes. The actual number of individuals who believed that Martians were descending upon Earth was far smaller than popular narrative suggests. However, one intriguing aspect of the Y War of the World Scene incident, while difficult to prove, could be quite relevant in 1938, there was a widespread belief that aliens were indeed arriving the American government. Well aware of this sentiment and the subsequent research conducted 3 years later by the Office of Radio Research at Princeton University, recognized that the public could easily be led to believe in such extraordinary events. This understanding would later fuel ongoing investigations into the societal impact of media and its power to shape perceptions of reality. Subsequently, while no documentation substantiates this theory, one can easily apply a bit of common sense. If you were concocting a press release designed to astound and captivate the public, compelling them to act in accordance with your wishes, it's plausible that you would hint at extraordinary possibilities. You would recall the lessons learned from Poisety War of the World, saying, understanding how such a strategy could be successfully employed. Instead of committing this plan to paper, you would gather in a dimly lit office, conversing about it in whispers, the ideas swirling like smoke in the air. Furthermore, reports indicate that during the 1950s, a distinct watch the skies panic swept across America, and it appears the authorities, using the term loosely, were indeed behind it. This orchestrated anxiety served a highly pragmatic purpose. They were increasingly concerned that their radar coverage did not extend the entire length of the coast. By fostering a belief that UFOs were continuously darting through the skies, they aimed to encourage the public to spend more time outdoors, gazing skyward and scanning the sea, reporting anything unusual. It was a shrewd tactic by the Americans, designed to keep a vigilant eye on potential incoming aircraft, especially from the Russians, ensuring they remained alert to any threats lurking just beyond the horizon. Were they truly apprehensive that history could repeat itself? Yet, the incident was swiftly hushed, the primary catalyst being panic. Suddenly, we found ourselves faced with a phenomenon from another place, another time, or perhaps even another dimension, and we were utterly unprepared to understand the implications. This fear echoed back to 1938, with H.G. Wells and the invasion of Martians, a time when people committed suicide and spiraled into madness. Moreover, we must ponder what it is we are actually confronting. Is it new technology, or something far more profound? This uncertainty likely explains why those in power were intricately involved right from the very ground level. After all, they were the ones shaping the policies that ultimately led us to the current climate of official ridicule and the ongoing classification surrounding what we truly know about UFOs. What lies beneath the surface remains cloaked in mystery, leading us to question not only what they know, but what we have yet to understand. The evidence gathered from numerous eyewitness accounts paints a vivid picture of Hangar 84 at the Roswell Army Airfield, where the bodies were encased in a large wooden crate. What they orchestrated was nothing short of brilliant. By announcing they had recovered a flying saucer, they deftly diverted attention away from the true nature of the incident, ensuring that nobody went searching for the object itself. Everything was swiftly transported to Fort Worth, where higher officials swiftly proclaimed, No, those guys made a mistake. It was just a weather balloon." But then they tracked down Jesse Marcel, who had been in Fort Worth and had effectively been silenced. Testimony suggests a palpable pressure was exerted on individuals to keep them quiet, employing whatever means necessary to ensure their silence. For military personnel, the threat was stark and clear: imprisonment or jail loomed as a reminder of the severe consequences they faced if they didn't comply. The atmosphere was thick with tension, as fear of reprisal kept the truth buried beneath layers of deception. They asserted that they were being silenced about their knowledge of UFOs, and this isn't a matter that can be answered simply. I find it entirely plausible that some individuals are indeed silenced and pressured to remain discreet about UFO-related occurrences. However, I believe that what is more likely at play is the testing of secret hardware, with military personnel being the ones caught in the crossfire of these events. They might witness things that fall outside their purview, accidental encounters with phenomena that they were never meant to see. In such scenarios, it becomes alarmingly easy to stifle someone. A mere suggestion that they didn't truly see what they thought they did could effectively sideline any budding curiosity. The implication that their careers could suffer if they ever spoke of such things again would loom heavily over their shoulders. Ensuring their compliance through a cloak of fear and professional consequence, numerous cases exist where this intimidation has unfolded. Civilians were warned that if they ever spoke of their experiences, death would be their fate. In one instance, I admitted, yes, I handled it. My mother, a strict figure in my life, instilled a relentless insistence within me. Yes, I saw it. Yes, I held it as tension escalated. He grew louder, declaring that it resembled a small baseball bat, something that could easily hook onto the side of your belt. He produced the object, rhythmically striking it against his hand to emphasize every word. I want you to understand, he proclaimed, his voice cutting through the silence. You were never there. You saw nothing. You didn't hear any conversation with a piercing gaze, he continued. If you can't comprehend this, let me warn you. There are things we can do out here in the middle of this desert. The threat hung heavy in the air, a chilling reminder of the lengths to which they would go to maintain their secrets. This is a vast desert, stark and unyielding. He looked at me intensely and said, the only way I'm going to let you stay around or live is if you promise you'll never talk about this for the rest of your life. I nodded, assuring him I wouldn't breathe a word upon his return from Roswell, where he had flown the debris. He firmly instructed my mother never to discuss this again. This is a non-event, he repeated. It never happened. Don't even speak of it to your friends, and I dutifully complied. Years later, he admitted that he had actually been a part of the cover-up, having chosen to align himself with the Air Force's fabricated explanation, despite knowing deep down that it was a lie. We were sitting in a bar, and a guy I knew just a little, certainly not well, struck up a conversation. I won't disclose what town it was in, but during our chat, he casually remarked, well, I was at Roswell. They say the aliens crashed, and just like that, the bombshell dropped. He didn't elaborate further. It's essential to consider the fervor surrounding such revelations, far more thrilling than any preparations for nuclear warfare. Here, you had deceased aliens lying somewhere in the desert, and the shock would be overwhelming. If news got out, if he leaked anything, the government had to be aware. They must have known. Perhaps he had already been warned, and if so, maybe the next time I saw him would be a long while from now. If at all. They meticulously examined various aspects of the debris, including a foil-like material that seemed almost otherworldly. You could wad it up into a tight ball, and when released, it would effortlessly unfold itself, as if it possessed a mind of its own. Attempts to burn it were futile. They subjected it to scorching flames, even pulling out knives in a desperate effort to cut through its enigmatic surface, but nothing worked. I suppose they all relished their moments of exploration, and when it lay on the table before me, curiosity got the better of me, prompting me to reach over and pick it up. When you clutched it in your hand, it felt as if there was nothing there at all, an absence of weight, a ghostly presence. It could reduce to such a minuscule size that you'd have to squint to see if it still rested in your palm. Yet, upon dropping it, it would fan out spectacularly across the table. They couldn't burn it or tear it. It mirrored aluminum foil in appearance, yet when crumpled in one's grasp, it emerged without a single crease. I find it oddly amusing, really, the tale behind this remarkable metal, how they crunched it in their hands only for it to effortlessly return to its original shape. One of the interviewers I once spoke with remarked, well, we don't have anything like that today. The incredulity hung in the air, a lingering testament to the extraordinary nature of what we had encountered. After we got off the air, I seized the moment and said, do you remember what you mentioned about technology? How we don't have anything like that today. He looked puzzled, prompting me to clarify. But it's right before your eyes. His curiosity piqued. He asked, what do you mean? I replied, for instance, take this. I acquired these about 3 years ago. They're truly fascinating. We actually do have something similar to that. It's known as memory metal. It returns to its original shape. I continued, a hint of pride in my voice. I got these frames specifically because I was always sitting on my glasses, repeatedly forced to buy new ones. Yet here I am, 3 years later, and they're still in perfect condition. The contrast between the advanced technology I held and the disbelief of his earlier comments was stark, leaving an echo of intrigue in the air. Footage, rumored to be a glimpse into the aftermath of the unidentified flying object's crash, captures fragments that speak volumes of an extraordinary encounter. Major Jesse Marcel's son, Jesse Marcel Jair, recalls being shown pieces of the UFO by his father, I-beams measuring about 12 to 18 inches long. What struck him as peculiar were the symbols, or writing on the inner surface. At first glance, it bore resemblance to Egyptian hieroglyphics, but as he examined it more intently, he realized it resembled geometric symbols of some kind. The sight was undeniably strange, igniting a sense of mystery that would linger with him for years. As he contemplated the inner surface, the writing or symbols of some sort caught his attention, revealing a notable distinction between the debris captured in the film and what he had seen spread across the kitchen floor. The symbols on the so-called I-beam were decidedly larger than those he had encountered. The size of the beams varied significantly. The one he had observed was likely 3/8 of an inch in cross-sectional diameter and 18 inches long. In stark contrast, the beam in the film was undeniably more imposing, several inches in cross-sectional diameter. The differences fueled his curiosity, leaving him haunted by unanswered questions and the eerie notion of what had truly occurred that fateful day. If this film is authentic, it could very well originate from a different portion of the craft. The metal appeared strikingly like stainless steel that had endured extreme heat. It showcased a dazzling brilliance, shifting from bright to a delicate pink, then deepening to a dark brown, and finally nearly black brown. The symbols emblazoned on the object I saw in the film bore no resemblance to any language I had studied. They vaguely hinted at capital Greek letters, yet upon closer inspection, they diverged significantly. They were not Egyptian, neither Old Egyptian, Needle Egyptian, nor Late Egyptian, Demotic, Coptic. They were neither Arabic nor Persian. What fascinated me was the nature of the signs themselves. Perfectly round circles and impeccably straight lines that exhibited no wavering, no variance in width or depth, at least as far as I could discern on the tape. The sheer strangeness of it all left me grappling with an unsettling mixture of intrigue and bewilderment. I can only surmise that the society responsible for that piece must be technologically advanced, perhaps even far beyond our understanding. As we delve deeper into the intricacies of technology and the strides we've taken, the rationale for maintaining such secrets becomes ever more compelling. On that fateful night in 1947, vital information was deliberately withheld from us in the backdrop. Clear arsenals were expanding, driven by curiosity about our newly uncovered capabilities. There is no doubt that footage of the autopsy exists in the wake of an event of this magnitude. Capturing every aspect of it on film would be an essential course of action. Individuals directly involved in the cleanup, both at the debris field and the impact site, have relayed that photographs were taken, and film was recorded. All of this material must exist somewhere, waiting to unveil the truth that has long remained shrouded in secrecy. I have pored over their files and conducted interviews with approximately 400 to 500 witnesses. After a couple of years of relentless research, I, as a scientist, find myself increasingly driven to the conclusion that the extraterrestrial hypothesis, but I emphasize that word, hypothesis, stands as the most probable explanation for the events at hand. I'm prepared to reconsider my stance if presented with evidence that categorically dismisses it. This is my unwavering position. The crash in Roswell occurred over 70 years ago, yet we still possess so little knowledge about that pivotal event. Why is that the lingering shadows of secrecy continue to obscure the truth? Congressman Stephen Schiff emerged as a steadfast champion in the quest for truth. When I first reached out to the Secretary of Defense, seeking information about the Roswell incident amid allegations of a government cover-up, the response I received was chillingly brief. It came in the form of a terse letter, merely a sentence or two from the Air Force, stating they had referred my inquiry to the National Archive. That was all it said. No acknowledgement, no elaboration when I approached the National Archives. They responded with a disheartening declaration. They had no information regarding the Roswell incident. This left me feeling as if I were being toyed with, shuffled from one department to the next, without any hope of clarity. Meanwhile, the military turned its gaze toward the JAL, further complicating the search for answers and deepening the enigma surrounding Roswell. Toward the end of 1993, the General Accounting Office agreed to embark on an investigation into Roswell, hopeful that its inquiries might provoke a response from the Air Force. In 1994, a new narrative emerged regarding the 1947 wreckage, but this was merely the tip of the iceberg. By 1995, the JO turned its attention to key government defense bodies, the CIA, FBI, Department of Energy, and Department of Defense, seeking any documentation, classified or otherwise, related to Roswell. Each agency emphatically declared that they had no such information. They have since disavowed the weather balloon story, yet now they assert it was a different kind of balloon, a specialized one, designed to ascend to extreme altitudes, especially in light of the Soviets detonating nuclear weapons in the atmosphere. I find myself questioning why the Air Force took so long to adopt this as their explanation, assuming it is indeed the truth. They claim that the records were destroyed more than 40 years ago, leaving us without a single individual currently on the job whom we could call to ask, what happened to these records? Consequently, the JAO has been left with no further recommendations or insights on how to move forward. Additional requests were made for outbound telephone conversations, originating from the Roswell airfield during that time, and unsurprisingly, they discovered that all tapes had been destroyed. The only records noted as ruined pertain to communications from Roswell Army Airfield, 509th, specifically regarding moving messages. The shadows of secrecy only deepen, leaving us thirsting for the elusive truth. And what of the analysis of the materials? What about the autopsy reports? Where is the eyewitness testimony from those who stood guard, those who transported it, and those who examined it across various government labs? There must be an abundance of documents related to this. We're still engaged in discussions about Roswell after 71 years for several very compelling reasons. First and foremost, it's an incredible story. So, whether one's skepticism runs deep or not, I would fervently recommend that anyone interested in the Roswell incident delve into the book Kite a Day After Roswell. I may not believe many of the assertions made within its pages, nor do I fully trust the author's claims about his identity, but it delivers a riveting narrative that captures the imagination like no other. The tension and intrigue woven throughout the text leave readers craving more. Even as they grapple with uncertainty, there's profound intent in my assertion. Stories like Roswell provide us with something vital in an era when trust in authorities has eroded and our faith in established institutions, such as the church, has dwindled. The allure of Roswell lies in the tantalizing prospect that we may be just 1 or 2 steps away from revelations that touch the miraculous. It offers a framework for understanding our existence and our place in the universe, presenting concepts that are within our grasp. Thus, whether or not the story holds true, it remains an incredibly powerful narrative, one that sparks curiosity and fuels the human imagination. The very essence of its mystery draws us in, demanding attention and invoking contemplation about the cosmos and our role within it. We continue to discuss Roswell precisely for this reason. It retains immense market value. As long as individuals keep emerging with new claims or reconnecting with old ones, the story will persist, much like other mysteries and myths that evolve over time. Right. We are still engaging in this dialogue because if any of the skepticism I harbor turns out to be unfounded, then we are indeed discussing one of the most significant events in the history of mankind. There was a time when our officer in charge, OIC, was required to travel to Fort Belvoir, Virginia. I was honored to be selected as the driver for this mission upon our arrival. The IEC headed toward the briefing for the officers, while the drivers were directed to a separate location. It was just myself and an airman first class as we made our way to the balcony area, a covered platform that provided us the chance to peer down at the officers below. To our intrigue, we found them engrossed in films. It appeared they were watching some type of science fiction movies, splicing them together in a manner reminiscent of trailers at the end of a film. Yet, despite my curiosity, I couldn't discern the nature of the films they were viewing. The atmosphere brimmed with a sense of intrigue, as if we had stumbled upon something far more significant than a simple briefing. As we chatted amongst ourselves, two gentlemen entered the room and instructed us to follow them. An unsettling thought crossed my mind, the airmen, and I feared we might be in trouble for witnessing all those officers engrossed in what we believed to be clips from science fiction movies. Honestly, I never imagined I would find myself in a situation where exposure to such remarkable secrecy felt so immediate. However, after 4 grueling days and 5 sleepless nights of what they called intensified debriefing, I finally managed to assure them that I wouldn't breathe a word about it. Let me shed some light on what intensified debriefing entailed in this harrowing experience. Sleep took precedence over food. You'd choose sleep over sustenance every time water was provided, essential for survival, but food was scarce. You'd lay your head down, barely sinking into what they termed deep sleep for no longer than 3 to 5 minutes before being jolted awake and subjected to more interrogation under glaring lights. They understood the uncertainty gnawing at you and had a profound psychological effect. This encapsulates some of the experiences of eyewitnesses from Roswell, including those who claimed military backgrounds, although some may not have been what they professed. I can't help but find irony in the situation. The very people who assert they are being silenced often happen to be the ones profiting the most, hawking books filled with their sensational accounts. Their narratives often work to disprove the very phenomena they purport to reveal, leaving us to ponder the tangled web of truth and deception that surrounds the Roswell legacy. My fascination with ufology stems from a complex interplay of reasons. At its core, it represents one of the greatest mysteries that still elude us. There's an insatiable thirst for knowledge surrounding it, one that we can never quite satisfy. For starters, it captivates the imagination. The stories that surface are often nothing short of astonishing. This realm challenges everything we may hold as truth. While I remain skeptical, I've encountered an abundance of individuals who claim to have undergone abductions, and I would never be quick to label them as liars. These people share their experiences with a depth of emotion akin to the trauma of a car accident. The sheer fact that such phenomena exist keeps me engaged, for it opens a door to the mysterious, a domain where we might actually begin to unravel some of the enigmas that surround us. It is this very mystery that fuels our quest for understanding in a world full of questions, inviting curiosity and exploration at every turn. My interest is further amplified by the possibility that if even one of these incredible stories, one of the countless claims, is true, it would profoundly alter our understanding of ourselves, redefining our place within the vast cosmos. The implications are staggering. It opens up a realm of possibilities regarding the nature of existence itself. I find this area endlessly fascinating because it continually reveals new insights. Each discovery we make is nothing short of astonishing. As an airline pilot with 3 years of active experience and nearly 20 years of flying under my belt, I have had my share of remarkable sights. One night, while glancing over a field, I was struck by the sight of red lights rising from the ground. They seemed to be about a quarter mile away. These lights ascended to around 150 feet in the air before lowering back down toward the field, only to rise again. They moved with an unexplainable fluidity, captivating my attention until, in an instant, the lights vanished. The experience left me both bewildered and intrigued, a vivid reminder of the mysteries that continue to dance just beyond our reach. I often observe meteoric phenomena streaking across the sky, and every now and then I catch a glimpse of the light from the space shuttle passing overhead. However, there's nothing in my experience that I can't explain, and I'm more than willing to clarify those occurrences. Yet, the specter of ridicule looms ominously over this entire discourse. I fully grasp its pervasive nature, but it ultimately distills to a harsh reality. Anyone brave enough to report an unusual sighting today risks being labeled as crazy. Just consider the findings of the Condon report. Allowing such a report to go unchallenged would mean we're complicit in the victimization of those who dare speak out. Many individuals have suffered the consequences of official ridicule following their sightings. A painful truth nowadays, The majority of airline pilots would hesitate to report a sighting publicly. I've heard many pilots confess that they wouldn't report an anomaly to the Air Force, even if it came barreling into the cockpit. They reference the case of Captain Killian, a man who faced severe ridicule and was ultimately silenced by his airline, highlighting the chilling effect such experiences can have on those in the industry. According to his wife, Captain Killian was pressured into silence by the Air Force. While that may be hearsay, the reality remains that since that time, he has resolutely avoided answering any questions. He refuses to appear on television, radio, or engage with reporters at all. The weight of his silence speaks volumes indeed. There are those who face ridicule for their beliefs, irrespective of what those beliefs entail, and this certainly extends to UFO enthusiasts. But it's not limited to just them. Individuals captivated by thrash metal or fervently devoted religious zealots also experience their share of scorn. Often, the ridicule arises from their staunch convictions and the uncompromising nature of their assertions. The backlash typically begins when they voice their beliefs in settings where such discussions are neither solicited nor welcomed, leading them to perceive themselves as victims of persecution. These dynamics paint a complex picture of how society responds to the unconventional. Throughout much of my working life, especially during the week, I've been immersed in environments with young, impressionable minds. In this context, my fascination with UFOs has proven to be a remarkably positive aspect of my identity. It undeniably makes me more intriguing to others. Engaging in discussions with individuals who possess knowledge about this subject can be as enlightening as conversing about any other cool topics that people are passionate about. For instance, if you're old enough to have experienced bands like the Smiths, someone might react with disbelief. Really, yeah. Right, this element of skepticism is also prevalent in ufology, yet I haven't felt significantly dampened by it over the years. In fact, overall, my interest in the topic has enriched my life when it comes to sightings. Many individuals prefer to remain silent. They opt not to discuss what they've seen, even though it would be far easier for them and others to simply walk away from the conversation. One individual even mentioned that it was a hush deal regarding the UFO, implying a veil of secrecy that often shrouds such experiences in that moment. I identified myself as the director of the National Investigations Committee on Air Phenomena, an organization that has spent the past 12 years conducting a thorough and private investigation into the phenomenon of UFOs. Our mission has been cleared to gather the facts and present them to Congress, the press, and the public in hopes of shedding light on this enigmatic subject. Over the course of these past few years, I found myself in a unique position to examine some of the evidence. Though I fully acknowledge that I have yet to review all of the pertinent information, my journey has inevitably propelled me toward an unsettling realization. There are indeed cases that defy conventional explanation. Such instances confirm at the very least the existence of real UFOs, compelling us to confront the mysteries that linger just beyond our understanding. Beyond that, a compelling question arises. Could some of these real UFOs be under intelligent control? At this juncture, I can confidently say that I have encountered evidence that can be interpreted in such terms, although it remains open to alternative interpretations as well. If the National Academy of Sciences had devoted even 1/10 of their resources to investigating these phenomena, actually collecting reports from credible witnesses, the findings would be staggering. I'm talking about daylight sightings of machines, not just fleeting lights in the night sky. These include formations that change their patterns, radar scopes capturing objects transitioning from one form to another, all of it swiftly classified under Air Force regulations. If they had invested any serious effort in this inquiry, they surely wouldn't have issued such dismissive statements. Admittedly, I was a skeptic myself. It took nearly a year for me to stop dismissing the subject with laughter. During this past year, I've dedicated time to studying the various perspectives that people can hold regarding this issue. My journey has led me to identify 5 distinct points of view towards the problem at hand. The first I would label as prejudiced, a viewpoint formed through preconceived notions. The second is what I would call the party line, an adherence to established beliefs without question. The third is the skeptical stance, which I define as being open-minded yet critical. The fourth perspective belongs to the believer, who embraces the possibility of UFOs as fact. Finally, the fifth viewpoint is that of the contactee, individuals who operate under the conviction that communication with the occupants of flying saucers, or UFOs, is indeed possible, regardless of how one chooses to label them. Within this framework, we can discern two viewpoints that generally oppose the reality of the UFO phenomenon, alongside two others that begin with the presumption that the phenomenon is indeed real. There exists a fifth perspective, which I categorized in the middle. It operates under the assumption that the reports are genuine and may hold valuable information. As I have been asked to clarify my stance, it should now be evident that I prefer to be viewed from that middle point of view. A non-believer, in contrast, is someone entirely dismissive of anything related to UFOs, much like I once was. I thought it was all nonsense, complete and utter nonsense. It was only after immersing myself in hundreds of reports and conversing with countless witnesses, including many pilots, that my skepticism began to wane, ultimately leading me to a place of conviction in your mind. Does this all boil down to that? Absolutely not. What it should truly come down to is the need for an open investigation, one that operates independently of any government agency. While perhaps the government would need to provide some level of assistance, it is crucial that the inquiry remains transparent to eliminate any accusations of bias in uncovering the truth behind these phenomena. Now, let's consider this. While you don't necessarily need to prove the extraterrestrial hypothesis, there are indeed reports confirming the existence of devices under intelligent control, devices that have been seen and tracked by radar. Often, these have been simultaneously monitored by two radar stations to obtain a precise fix. While one radar confirmation can be compelling, the combination of two stations independently corroborating what is seen visually creates a remarkably strong case. I believe the only honest response to the question of whether we've been visited by aliens is to admit that we simply don't know. There's no irrefutable proof to definitively say we have. All right, however, we cannot ignore the multitude of mysterious occurrences that defy easy explanation in any realm. Therefore, it is essential to keep an open mind to the possibility of paranormal influence. That said, I remain deeply skeptical about claims regarding nuts and bolts UFOs being observed, photographed, or encountered up close in recent years. Despite what many assert, I find it far more plausible that if we have indeed been visited by aliens, it's possible they've done so in ways we can barely comprehend. Imagine a scenario where there's a safari park nearby focused on the preservation of endangered species, including lions. Those lions would have no inkling that humans are striving to protect them, because their kin in Africa face grave threats, right? In the same vein, if aliens have visited us, we might only perceive fragments of their involvement. This strikes me as significantly more reasonable than the notion that we've been visited by a craft seeking to abduct individuals. The cameras have indeed improved, and as our recording devices have advanced, we have managed to obtain more compelling evidence. Yet despite these advancements, we still lack anything that definitively proves the existence of an alien spacecraft out there. Will we ever uncover definitive answers about the unidentified flying object that is said to have crashed into the New Mexico desert? Numerous questions remain unanswered. Our history is littered with new discoveries that were initially ridiculed and dismissed by the broader community. Black holes, the alarming deterioration of our ozone layer, disbelief in the possibility of air travel, and Darwin's groundbreaking theory of evolution. What about the prospect of first contact with an alien species? That's a question I'll leave for you to ponder. Could these encounters be mere hallucinations or misidentified objects? I remain firmly convinced that such explanations do not account for all reports. While they might apply to a handful of instances, there exists a solid foundation of reliable observations that defy such reasoning. Do you truly believe they are visitors from another planet? Yes, I absolutely do. Well then, Doctor, if that is indeed the case, that these entities are visitors from another planet, and we possess extensive knowledge on this Earth, why haven't we ventured to other planets ourselves? The distinction may lie in the simple fact that we simply haven't had enough time to accomplish such a feat. Do you think we could go? I mean, with our current knowledge, is it feasible? I believe we absolutely could, provided we dedicated 10 to 15 years of intensive work and amassed resources rivaling those of the Manhattan Project. What we've witnessed, Doctor, are indeed visitors from another planet. But why haven't they landed? Ah, I have an explanation for that as well. They frequently land in secluded areas, over oceans, or in uninhabited regions of countries.